at first, before we even went, how people would tell us, these are beautiful women and they are cartel women and you don't talk to them. We've seen them at the whatever store and you don't get to talk to them.
They are a group of women that believe we've been commanded to go into all the world, not just the places we feel comfortable. With that in mind, they are taking a message of love to women engaged in the adult entertainment industries. But they are not your typical church ladies. They are lace warriors, and this is their battle cry.
Welcome to Battle Cry. Today, I am so excited to chat with Olga Verastegi, my partner in supporting sex workers in Acuña, Coahuila, Mexico. Join us as we explore ministering in Mexico, compare women's experiences in Mexico and the United States, discuss cartel influence, and reveal the purpose behind our efforts. So get ready for an impactful journey as Battle Cry heads to Mexico.
My husband is wonderful and he invites everybody to have an experience in the mission field, and he's passionate about missions and he just wants everybody to go. He kept bugging you and inviting you and you finally went. I didn't go at that time, but I do remember calling my husband in the evening, and he answered the phone, and I heard a lot of music, and I asked him, "Where are you?" And he said, "I'm at the bar with Jazz." And I said, "Oh, okay."
And just to clarify, Jose and I were not at a bar. we were checking out a ladies' bar, which we'll talk about later.
And then I remember you went that one time with my husband, and then he came back. He was super excited and told me all about your ministry. And then the next time we went, I went with you and him. And I remember, and we just started talking, and I was excited, for you, because you were going, and obviously you don't know Spanish. So I was like, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to translate for her. But I do remember thinking, I'm just going to go, and help. But, but God's going to send somebody else to work with her, because this is not what I'm going to be doing. But I do remember talking to you on our way over there and just telling you, like, I am so happy that you are doing this for these women, because I could never relate to them, and then I do remember you telling me, of course you can. And then you asked me, you go, have you never felt alone? Have you never felt unwanted? Have you never felt unloved? And you said, this is what these women feel. They're just women. They have the same feelings that you do. Because at that point, I was just thinking of them as just people I didn't know. They're just people that do that because they like it. That was my way of thinking back then, I mean.
What made you realize that they don't just like it?
Well, I went and I was able to put a face to these women. And honestly, I fell in love with their ministry, because I realized that not anybody is willing to go into a place like that and tell these ladies that Jesus loves them. And like you say, exactly where you are, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be anything else than who you are. And that's how God loves you.
What do you find most challenging about doing this ministry?
That a lot of people think the way I used to think, that these women like it, that that's why they're there, that it's easy money. But I do remember having that conversation with you too, about they like it. And you saying, how would you like to be touched by all these people, all these men? And I was like, I wouldn't. Well, why would they? Why would they why would anybody want to be touched by all these men? So they don't like it.
So if they don't like it, why do they do it?
Well, I mean, that's part of putting a face to their stories, you know. That's I know that they have families. I mean, I've always known how much they get paid at a manufacturing plant or whatnot, which is like $5, $7, $10 a day. But when you have a family, when you have children, that's not enough. That's not enough to make it.
Right.
Most of them have children, or even that one that had the brother with cancer
Mm-hmm.
and
And
was
he was
working
working to pay for his cancer
to
treatments.
pay for his cancer treatments.
And there was one that was working so that she could purchase equipment to start her own beauty salon.
Yeah.
And
So
a
she
lot of
can
them,
get out of it.
yeah, a lot of them do have an end game. They have a plan. This is just a way to meet those needs so that they can go on and do something different. But then others do choose to stay in. We met a woman a long time ago, but we ran into her again the other day. And she has been doing this, I want to say at least 20 years. And this is her life. In Mexico, so many women, once they enter prostitution, they can't just do something else.
Especially if people find out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, from going to the brothel, how most of the women are not from there. They come from other parts of the state because they don't want family or friends to find out what they're doing, because people will judge them that way. And once you're a prostitute for life.
Right.
You know.
So what would happen if somebody did find out?
I think for us, family is so important. Just bringing that embarrassment to our family would be devastating to us. And, you know, and people will always gossip and will always talk and will always, you are the daughter of whoever and you're the prostitute.
What are some of the successes that you've seen?
I mean, the ultimate success is for them to get out. But the biggest success for me right now would be for Mother's Day, that we were able to take them out of the brothel and take them out to eat.
Yes.
That was the biggest for me.
And why is that considered a success?
Because we took them out of their comfort zone. Like they're on my side of the field now.
Right.
You know, they're on my side now. Whereas I always go into their side.
And they were so much more open that day and willing to tell us about their lives and share things they wouldn't share inside the brothel.
Yeah. I mean, they shared about their lives and boyfriends and kids and, you know, husbands and so on and so on. It's gotten better where they've opened up a lot more. I mean, which is a success in itself.
Yes.
But remember going in the first couple of times that we went in and we're like, okay, we're here 5 minutes. That was huge. Or the first time that they started cutting up with us and laughing and telling jokes. We were so happy that one time. The success on going out into the ladies' bar and on the street is getting to actually pray for them. Like when they've come out and wanted us to pray. That's a success too.
So explain the difference between the brothel and the ladies' bars. What is a ladies' bar?
A place where the women were there and offered companionship, and men would come and they would offer their companionship.
And so what do you mean by companionship?
Well, they would drink with them, they would dance with them, and if offered, they were a client and they would go to a hotel, or you found out that some of the ladies' bars have little rooms in the back and they can go have their clients in there too.
Let me explain Boys Town. We call it, in the United States, we call it Boys Town. It's a brothel in a border town. There's several of them along the Mexico-United States border, and it's just an area of prostitution. It's more than just a club usually. It's like an area, and they're always called Boys Town. In Acuña, the Boys Town has a name. It's called Hunter's Bar. In Acuña, they call that area something different. What do they call it?
They call it la zona de tolerancia, or la zona. It means that that's where it's technically legal prostitution. Whatever happens in the street, at la zona de tolerancia, for a woman to work there, you have to pass, like, you have to get a medical card. You get checked on a regular basis, and you have to be able to pass. Whereas in the street, you don't. It's just a zone. It's a zone, and this is where Hunter's Bar is, and how it used to be outside the city limits, but now the city has caught up to it. So, but the way it is, it's carved into a little hill, and that's where la zona de tolerancia, or la zona, or Boys Town is.
I had been praying to be able to go in there for a long time.
And people would tell us, no, it's closed. It's already, and you can't go in, and so on.
Pastors were telling us that.
Yes, they were telling us that. But we somehow connected with this other lady who had a ministry up on that little hill. And she used to help or minister to some of the older prostitutes. That ministry was only a couple of blocks from Boys Town. And I remember she asked, do you want to go see? And of course I asked you because I was translating. And of course you said yes, because you had been praying for it. So we walked over, because it was only a couple of blocks. We walked over. We're up on the little hill looking down. This lady had some connection to the bar down there. And she asked, she goes, do you want to go down there? I translated that to Jess. And as I was finishing translating, Jess was going down the little hill. So we go down the little hill to go in. And I was like, we're just going to go outside. There were men working on the roof of the bar. The men are like, hello, you can go in if you want to. I was like, I'm not translating that. And then they said it again, and I go, okay, Jess, they're saying that we can go inside. Do you want to go inside? And she's like, yes. They took us in. They gave us a tour of everything. The rooms. They told us how much they charged, how clients, everything. Everything. But that was our very first time. And it was amazing how God just answered your prayer, to go. And I know I had been telling God, if you don't want me to be here, if you don't want me to work with Jess, you need to send somebody else. And this has been over maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's been wonderful. It's been a wonderful journey, and I've grown.
In what way would you say you've grown?
Just being more accepting, less judgmental. All this has brought me, even on my walk with the Lord, it's brought me closer to Him. Just
you went on an outreach in the United States, and you've done regular outreaches in Acuña. What are the differences in outreaching in the two different countries?
I remember when you first started going, you said that the standard of beauty was very different in Mexico than how it was in the U.S. And of course, at the time, I had no idea. And you said the women in the U.S., they look like Barbies. I mean, they're beautiful and so on. And in Mexico, The women that work at the ladies' bar, they come in all shapes and sizes and age and with teeth, with no teeth. There's someone for everyone. Now the ladies at the brothel, they're beautiful. I mean, they are. But the women in Mexico, every time I have gone, they are fully clothed. They're dressed provocatively, of course, but I mean, you see nothing. I remember because remember at the beginning we went a couple of times at night before we started going during the day, and even though they were with clients, they were fully clothed. And then you invited me to go do an outreach here in the States. You prepared me, and you said these women are going to be in different stages of undress. They're women. I'm a woman. I'm okay. I walked in, and the very first, right at the entrance, there's two girls, and they're wearing pasties with a very small thong. And I just went, oh, okay. But you did warn me, so I just kept walking behind you. There was a lady dancing. Yeah, she was moving very provocatively. And I was not expecting that because I hadn't seen that ever. You said, just keep going. And I just followed you. And then we went into the dressing room. And yes, it was true. The girls are beautiful here in the States, and they're all made up and, and they look beautiful. Those are the main differences.
So what are the similarities?
They're doing it for the money. And I don't think the ones here, they were being fondled. They weren't being touched.
No, the clubs in Texas are no-touch clubs. They're not allowed to touch. It's against the law.
And here in the States, I didn't see anybody like actually taking a drink and drinking with the man, where in Mexico they do. Remember at the brothel, one of the ladies was telling us that depending on how many drinks they can get their clients to buy, that's how they pay for their room.
Yeah. What are your impressions of the women working at Boys Town? Like, if you were just to see them on the street, what would you think?
They're just women. I mean, now that we've gone and seen them, okay, because remember when at first, before we even went, how people would tell us, these are beautiful women and they are cartel women and you don't talk to them. We've seen them at the whatever store and you don't get to talk to them and whatever. And it's not like that.
Well, I remember people saying that that Boys Town is cartel run, and maybe it is. I mean, I really don't know if it is or not, but they've always welcomed us.
Yeah.
We've never had any issues whatsoever. I see two men the whole time we're there because we go during the day.
Yeah.
I see two men, and that's some guy, I don't even know who he is, and and the DJ who always helps us carry stuff in.
And he's super nice.
He's nice. So I don't know. Maybe it is cartel run. I don't know. But those girls are definitely not cartel prostitutes. They are not afraid for us to be there. They're not afraid to talk. There's a house mom sitting right there, and she's probably our biggest supporter. She loves it when we come. Yeah. I find it hard to believe.
Yeah, I mean, I remember those stories, and I'm like, this is not who they are. How most of them come from out of Acuña, but there are some from Acuña that they live in Acuña, so they go work on the weekend, and then they go home to their kids and come back at night. Well, you saw that one on Saturday that came in. She had been with her kids. She had gone to see her kids, and then she had come back.
The Boys Town in Acuña is right now, it's just one bar, one club. But there are other buildings there. Describe some of those other buildings that are being unused right now, but describe what they were used for.
Well, at one point, the city would shut down like the ladies' bars and everything else in the city at 2. So then everybody would not everybody, but whoever wanted to continue partying and stuff, that's where they would go to Boys Town. And they knew that there were prostitutes and stuff over there. Right next to Hunter's Bar, there was another bar that it burned down several years ago. And they talk and they say that in that bar, they used to have very young women prostitutes there. And then if you notice in the very back, there's like some metal buildings and stuff. So at Hunter's Bar, the women that work there are the pretty ones, the ones that had the medical card. Anything in the back was older, trans and all that. That's where they would be. But those were the cheap. Those were the ones that the people from the manufacturing plants could afford.
Who were the customers of the pretty women at the bar up front?
Usually Americans.
Okay.
It would be Americans or people who could afford it. Because remember, they said that they would charge per client, depending on how pretty they were, from $80 to $100 and something per client. But if they wanted to spend the whole night with them, it was around $400.
Right.
Do you
But
remember
who gets
something
all
like
that money?
I think they do. They do. Once they pay for the room and stuff, they keep all that. Because they've never talked about a pimp or anything. I mean, I don't know if they would talk about it, but remember the house mom? She said that most of them have been doing it for some years, that they have their own clients where they tell them, hey, I'm going to be here this weekend. And then they just schedule them as to when they can come in. I'm happy where we are, and I've never felt unsafe. I've actually felt safer at the brothel than on the street.
And why is that?
When we go to the brothel, it's just the women. It's just the women that we get to talk to and joke around and do whatever. Whereas when we go to the street, sometimes they're already there with the client and they're dancing with them. And there's a lot of men too. And you don't know if they're cartel or not, or what their intentions are, because they will try to strike up a conversation or whatever. I mean, you just move on, but still. And some of them are drunk. And you're like, I mean, I can punch you, but it's uncomfortable. They get on your personal space.
So you never felt unsafe in Lizona?
Never.
Would you go by yourself? If I were to die tomorrow and the ministry had to continue on and you couldn't find anyone to go with you, would you go by yourself?
I think I would. I think I'm falling in love with it, with what you do, because nobody else will do it, Jazz.
Well, and I was just going to bring that up. I had just said that you wouldn't have anyone to go with you. Would you go by yourself? But why wouldn't anybody go with you? Why are two women from the United States crossing the border to outreach to women in Acuña? Why isn't somebody from Acuña doing this?
Because there's still that stereotype that, you know how it was when you first went and everybody was excited and they're like, I'm going to go with you and this and that. And then it was time to go. And they were like, well, you can't go because it's closed. You can't go because it's cartel members. You can't go because of whatever, and then, God just opened that door. And then they couldn't go because I have to take care of my testimony. And what are people going to say? And that's how people are going to be like, ooh, I saw your daughter at the ladies' bar. They don't know what I'm doing, but they know I'm at the ladies' bar, even though they're in there.
Yeah. If my testimony is good, then how can doing ministry in a bar hurt my testimony? If people know who I am, then they would know that I must be there for a reason.
I mean, I wouldn't go to the ladies' bar just to have fun and go dancing and see who I could get.
That's not your character. That's not who you are.
That's not who I am. Jazz, Claudia, your pastor's wife has earned my respect. just on her saying, you know what, I will go.
There's 2 women in Acuña that after 4-5 years have stepped up and started doing outreaches with us. One is
Yep.
my pastor's wife, and she started, like in March.
Yeah.
And the other started a week ago.
Yeah.
And it's taken this much time, 5 years, to get 2 other women to start going with us.
Mhm.
And the reason I go to the church that I go to is because they're not afraid. They will step up and they will minister to people, and they don't care where they have to go to minister to people. So my pastor, when we did an outreach to the ladies' bars, he was right there with us. And, he didn't go in, but he stood outside and he was ministering to the men. And, his wife was going inside with us, and they don't see any problem with it. I mean, they're not worried about protecting their testimony because they know what their testimony is. They know who they are.
Yeah.
And, I just, the others who are worried about protecting their testimony, I feel like they're just more worried about their image than they're worried about sharing Christ, which is really sad.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we had that one that walked in with her Bible open.
Yeah. Yes, we had a former, she was a prostitute at Boys Town, and she wanted to do an outreach with us, and we were excited about it. And it was my fault. I take full responsibility. We didn't explain anything to her. And so we walked in, and she was walking behind us, and she had her Bible open, and she's reading from her Bible loudly as we're walking in. And I'm like, tell her to put the Bible away because we don't go in preaching. We don't go in with an agenda. Our goal is just to develop relationships. And then we will take those relationships outside of the brothel. And then that's where we can do ministry. But then she went in and she started preaching, and it probably set things back several months. Do you have anything you want to add before we close this out?
Thank you for taking me on this wild ride.
It has been crazy good. It has been. And I know that God has brought us together to do this ministry together. And just the way things have worked out, and we've become such good friends through it. And I can't imagine doing this ministry with anyone else but you.
Oh, thank you.
You can warrior up with your own Christian apparel at officialstriptease.com. Connect with us at battlecrypodcast.com or on all the usual social media outlets. Thanks for watching Battle Cry. And remember, wars are not fought in the barracks, so warrior up and let's hear your battle cry.